Cryonics is a scam. Really? Well, define a scam.
In the UK today, the average life expectancy is 81. This has doubled in the past century. However, with science rapidly improving, we are working to find ways to live longer and possibly become immortal.
Cryogenics is the study of things at very, very low temperatures, which can be anything, whereas cryonics is the freezing of a human body soon after death or of any body part.
In order to be cryopreserved, blood has to be flushed from the body and replaced with an antifreeze solution. Bodies are then stored at minus 196 degrees in liquid nitrogen. Cryonics can be seen as a form of life insurance, giving people who sign up the hope that one day they will be brought back to life. Currently, the biggest institutes are in the United States, the most known being Alcor. Cryonics UK is the only place in the United Kingdom that is currently performing the procedure. Patients are then sent to the US to be stored until we are able to bring them back. Tim Gibson, aged 43, signed up to be cryogenically preserved in 1992, aged 20. Then in 2009, he took over management for Cryonics UK.
In the world, there's probably around about 2,500 people with a contract. Probably a bit less. Most of them are based in the US. Probably, I think percentage is probably about 90% in the US and Canada maybe. The second sort of most popular country for cryonics is the UK.
It's here on this ordinary street in Sheffield that you'll see an ambulance parked outside ready to rush to the bedside of any dying member. It's also here where not only does Tim live, but also runs Cryonics UK training days for volunteers and members.
If we ran out of volunteers, it would all go horribly wrong. And this is something we're conscious of. And I think a few years ago that almost happened, in the sense that the key team went down to 2, 3, 4 people. The cynics amongst us would probably still say that it's only you, Mr. Gibson. Well, about 5 years ago, it was only somebody else, and it was only somebody else before that, because people do come along and people do stuff, and new people come along all the time.
The Cryonics training days are open to both volunteers and members. They have currently performed over 10 cases and are actively making sure they are prepared for more as science improves.
We sort of get the body ready for it to be preserved. We don't do the final bit, which is putting them into the storage, but we do everything leading up to that. Well, I've done the part that we do. I've done that twice so far.
Members signed up to be preserved get an inside view on the procedure, like Yvonne Fitzgerald here, who actually gets involved with cryonics.
I am basically interested in futurism. The reviving of a rabbit's brain in January this year has brought forward the science of cryonics to a more practical level. Look at the trend lines of mechanical improvement, computerization, biomedical improvement, and realise that in 5 years' time the world will be unrecognisable.
Throughout the last decade, scientists have responded with mixed opinions. Some have excluded the practice completely. However, some biologists, such as Rosalind Williams, are still optimistic for cryonics success.
Scientific advances have been made all the time in loads of different areas. You know, we can do things now that we didn't think we could do even 20 years ago. So who's to say that this, even if it is 100, 200 years in the future, who's to say that this couldn't never happen? As soon as you die, not very much happens. Your heart stops beating, and then later on you go into rigor mortis, which is where all your muscles go paralysed, which is probably would be one of the things that you would want to counteract in cryonics, because it tends to stiffen everything up and it changes the structure of the proteins in the muscle. And also what happens a few hours after you die is the blood all settles to the very, very bottom of your body. And again, that's something that you would probably want to stop happening.
One of the biggest issues in cryonics is the preservation of the human brain. Damage could cause difficulty in thinking and emotions, or even alter their personality, whilst also damaging areas such as memory, hearing and speech, and could cause the loss of language and touch. Patients could even lose their vision completely.
Although people talk about bringing bodies back to life, I think there's a great deal of support for the idea these days that that's not going to happen. You're going to engineer a replacement and stick the data in it. Certainly the younger you are, the more attached you are to your body psychologically. As you get older, you just think, oh God, can I have a new one? And I think that helps to deal with the idea that the best option is probably to have your head chopped off.
The thing about brain dead people is that everything else still functions, but they've got no wakefulness in them. And I think if we can get to a point where we can bring people back from the dead, from being frozen, that we will be able to get past the point of brain dead.
Science is not the only milestone cryonics need to bypass. Many argue its ethical approach. In 2015, a 2-year-old Thai girl became the youngest cryonics patient, giving hope to her parents that one day their daughter will be returned to them. The same chance was given to Kim Suozi, who died at age 23 in 2013 with a brain tumour. She chose to have her brain frozen in the hopes to one day be transformed into digital code.
I don't think cryonics is necessarily a way forward from a moral perspective. In fact, so many people say, oh, isn't it a bit immoral? It leads to overpopulation, blah, 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 blah. And the obvious answer is, well, you mean like medicine, which is exactly why we have an overpopulation problem in this country, because we keep everyone alive. The thing is to see cryonics as just another product. If people think it's not worth spending the time and the money investing in it, then they won't do it. It doesn't matter how important it is. It's a bit like your health. You know, everyone identifies it as really important, but then if you can't be bothered, then you don't bother. And you kind of kill yourself deliberately by not doing anything about it. So once I would say, if you've got someone who is not able to control their entire life, then there's a high likelihood that they can't be bothered with cryonics either.
Elsie, aged 78 from Manchester, has a sceptical view on cryonics and the thought of living forever.
If I thought they could find anything for me, aches and pains in my legs and all that, I'd like to live forever. But when you're in pain, you're wondering what to do. You know, you can't seem to have any cure for it. Well, if I live forever, I wouldn't like to live forever to see all my old children all go before me. No, you don't want to see them. You want to be there, gone before them, so you don't have to be upset by watching what happens to your children.
When you're on your deathbed dying of cancer and they offer you the experimental drug which may or may not work, costs 20 grand, but you can't take the money with you. You've got the money. Are you going to take the 20 grand treatment? Yeah, you probably are, aren't you? You'd obviously prefer it to be paid for by the NHS, which probably won't happen. But you'll take it, even though it probably won't work because it's just an experimental drug, and most experimental drugs don't work. They don't make it through the trials. Well, cryonics is the same. It's an experimental process, experimental medicine. And at the start, it may not work at all, but if you keep going, it may work.
A quick search online will show that not everyone shares a passive view on cryonics. Religious groups have boycotted institutes worldwide, arguing that the attempt to cure death is wrong and against nature, some stating that organisations in the US are sharing an unbiblical view of death.
And we don't get any objectors anymore, I would say. You used to get letters from what we would call crazies telling us that we'd go to hell. I can only kind of follow that up with the question that, a very rare question now from the media, but a journalist asked us a couple of weeks ago, said, don't you think you're playing God? And the answer is, do you believe in God? Because we don't.
As with the ethical issues, I think it's okay, because I know a lot of people argue about the playing God side of it, but at the end of the day, it's something that we can do, and who's to say that we can't play God?
Not all religious groups share these opinions, and instead give hope that one day religion and cryonics could walk hand in hand, starting with Dom Harris, a Christian from Chester.
I think what cryonics is doing is perfectly reasonable. I don't think any Christian is going to want to participate in it, but I think what people do with the bodies is completely up to them. If it did work, I don't think I would want to stay longer than I was needed on Earth, basically. I think even if it did work, you are going to be able to die anyway, so it's still up to God when you die. A longer lifespan obviously would be nice, but I can imagine spending eternity with God is nicer. Earth's not a great place.
Most cryonics institutes may be non-profit, but the procedure sets patients back around £65,000 for head-only service and £145,000 for whole-body service. While some see this as a cheap debt for avoiding death, some disagree with its certainty.
I think it'd be more for the rich. I don't think the average working person would be interested.
Well, I can find better things to spend it on, if you know what I mean.
I don't think I'd pay it, to be honest. Yeah, me neither. It's a bit dear, that.
Overall, Cryonics has taken a bold stance in the fight against death. Right or wrong, since the beginning of time till the end, we will always attempt to avoid death.
I think that living forever would be a curse, but then also a gift. A curse because it can get deep here. We don't really live in a good world, do we? And a gift maybe because obviously life in itself is quite special.
To live forever, you're going to have to go through an enormous amount of emotions if you're to live forever.
If by the time that I come to start thinking about dying and things like that, depending on what the progression has been made in the field and also how expensive it is, I would never rule it out, because death is very final and this stops it being as final.
Cryonics is just a response to a need. People want to survive and they'll do stuff to make it happen, and that's what we're doing. And if that's immoral, well then, hard luck.